Get in the car. Get in the car.
So the first part today will cover the original 1968 to 1971 Dodge Super Bee, as well as the Mexican Super Bees from 1970 to 1980. Part 2, which I'll put out in a few days, will cover the more recent versions, from 2007 to 2009, and 2012 to 2014. For each car, we'll take a look at all the unique features that make it a Super Bee, how many were produced, the colors available, and all of the exterior and interior specs. Whether you have a Super Bee yourself, used to have one, or just love Dodge muscle in general, hopefully you enjoy this video and appreciate these beautiful and powerful cars. So let's begin. Back in the 1960s and early 1970s, Dodge had a more premium car, the 1968 Coronet RT, with a higher price tag to justify more power and better features. There was also a 1968 Plymouth Roadrunner, which was a more lower priced car that had more value and very good sales numbers. Since Dodge was offering the higher priced Charger RT and Coronet RT, they demanded to have their own lower priced muscle car, which would end up being the Super Bee. The name was a play on words from the Bee body platform, and the logo was based on the Dodge Scat Pack Bee medallion. Funny story, the designer Harvey Wynn actually hand-cut that Bee design on his dining room table, and it stuck. So the original Dodge Super Bee was based on the Dodge Coronet two-door coupe, but meant to be more of a low-price muscle car, with a cost of just $3,027. The Dodge Coronet Super Bee was rushed out during the 1968 model year. It had two engine choices for that year, either the same 335 horsepower 383 V8 as the Roadrunner, or a 425 horsepower 426 Hemi, and the Hemi was a $1,000 option. Along with the engine, there was an optional 4-speed manual with a Hurst linkage, heavier duty suspension components, bigger brakes, high-performance tires, and a different hood. Although the Super Bee used the Dodge Coronet body, as I've said, it was more of a competitor for the Roadrunner, so it was about 65 pounds heavier and had a 1-inch longer wheelbase than that car. Die-cast chrome Bee medallions were used, while the Roadrunner had black and white decals. Other differences on the Super Bee were larger rear wheel openings, the Bumblebee tail stripe and fancier grille, taillight ornamentation, and the dash cluster was taken from the Dodge Charger. While 1968 offered just a coupe, 1969 would add a hardtop version and an optional twin-scooped air induction hood that was called the Ram Charger. This was functional and standard on the Hemi, and it was a similar offering to the Roadrunner's Coyote Duster air induction hood. Also added was another engine choice, a 440 6-pack, so the 6-pack meaning 3 2-barrel Holley carburetors, with 390 horsepower. This new engine was meant to slot in between the standard 383 Magnum and the 426 Hemi, and it was an option that cost $463. There was no 440 Magnum offered on the Super Bee, as that was reserved for the Coronet only. You can find some of the various engine specs on screen as well. So those 440 6-packs were also known as the A12 M-Code cars. So A12 was the package, and M was the letter changed on the VIN. This package included a Dana 60 axle, flat black scooped hood, heavy-duty automatic or 4-speed manual, heavy-duty internal engine parts, and heavy-duty 11-inch drum brakes. There were only 1,907 of these A12 M cars produced in 1969. For 1970, the Super Bee got a redesigned front end that featured a completely new dual oval grille. The Dodge PR team called it Bumblebee Wings, but it was a look that disappointed many, and sales fell as a result, which we'll take a look at in a minute. By 1971, the Coronet was only available as a sedan and a station wagon, so Dodge moved the Super Bee to the Charger platform, another move that might have affected sales for the worse. Dodge already had their Charger RT, so the Super Bee had to be the lower priced offering. The Super Bee kept its standard 383 engine, and it got some features like a C-stripe variation, high back bucket seats, a steering column mounted ignition, and a pistol grip Hurst shifter on the manuals. There was also a small block 340 engine offered, with only 26 of those units built. It was hard to find any sales data for this Super Bee, but it didn't do nearly as well as the Roadrunners or Coronets. In 1968, there were over 7,700 Super Bees sold with the 383 engine, but just 125 with the 426 Hemi. In 1969, Dodge made around 28,000 Super Bees, in contrast to the 84,000 Roadrunners and 196,000 Coronets. The majority of those, of course, were the 383 again, with 1,907 446 packs and just 166 426 Hemis. For 1970, the sales plummeted down to just 15,506, and they fell down even further in 1971, as Dodge made only 5,054 Charger Super Bees, of which just 99 had the 446 pack and 22 had the 426 Hemi. The Roadrunner, meanwhile, still sold over 20,000 in 1971. The falling sales can be attributed to a variety of reasons, including the new look not going over well with customers, and skyrocketing insurance rates for performance cars. The Super Bee itself never really had a firm spot in any lineup, always being more expensive than the Roadrunner, but cheaper than any other Dodge muscle car offerings. The 1968 version with the 383 could do 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds, and the quarter mile in 15 seconds. The 1971 version with the 426 Hemi could run to 60 in 5.7 seconds, and hit the quarter mile in just 13.7 seconds. Thus, the Super Bee became the budget supercar for those that wanted an ultra-high performance daily driver that could also tear it up at the track on weekends for just $3,000. You'll see that Dodge kept a budget performance car in mind when the Super Bee returned, especially on the 2012 to 2014 models. Interestingly, Mexico got a Super Bee for some time after it left the United States. In 1970, Chrysler of Mexico introduced it to replace the Plymouth Barracuda using the semi-fastback A-body platform. This model was basically the same as the Plymouth Duster, known as the Valiant Duster in Mexico, with the addition of side striping and the Super Bee decals. The Super Bee would get the 318 V8 engine with 270 horsepower and a 4-speed auto or 3-speed manual from 1970 to 1974, and for 1975 and 1976, it got the 360 V8 engine instead with 300 horsepower. Both of those engines were actually more powerful in Mexico rather than the US due to less strict anti-pollution laws. In 1971, the Super Bee grille was changed up by using one from the Dodge Demon. By 1973, it was using the front end of the Dodge Dart, and for 1976, the last year of the A-body cars, there was a Plymouth grille used. In the fall of 1975, Chrysler introduced the F-body cars for the 1976 model year, and Chrysler of Mexico continued using the old model names after they had been dropped in the US. So the new generations of the Dodge Aspen and Plymouth Volare were sold in Mexico as the Dodge Dart and Valiant Volare, while the sportier version carried the Super Bee nameplate again as the Valiant Super Bee. Both were kind of a mashup of the American vehicles, as the Mexican Valiant used the Volare rear end and Aspen nose, while the Mexican Dart used the Volare nose and Aspen rear end. The Valiant was available as a two-door sedan and had the 225 slant 6 standard, while the Super Bee had the same 360 V8 engine and transmission as before. The Super Bee also got wider sports wheels, front spoiler, and a trans and rear spoiler with Super Bee writing. For the 1980 model, it got a new front end with rectangular headlights, and it would finally get replaced after that by the Dodge Magnum.